Celebrating Holy Week in the midst of the pandemic is creating a challenge for clergy and their flock. But while the public celebration of Mass is off limits for most Catholics around the world, there are ways for the faithful to observe Holy Week. Joining me now is Father Dominic Legge, director of the Thomistic Institute. Father, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
It's great to be with you.
So, Father, how should we as Catholics approach this Holy Week? And also, how can we use this special time to help to deepen our faith?
Well, you know, Holy Week is a privileged time, and the liturgy is wonderfully, wonderfully rich. That's why it's particularly painful for many of us, I would say not only the laity, but also priests, I can speak for myself, when we are celebrating the liturgy and we have to do it in a kind of empty church. But that doesn't mean that everyone at home is deprived of the liturgy. Of course, you can watch something on a live stream. You can also pray along with the liturgy, and I think that's a great way to do it, to actually read the liturgical texts and pray with them at home, make an act of spiritual communion, and do your best to live out the rhythm of the Church's liturgy from your own home.
I know the Thomistic Institute has been offering what you're calling quarantine lectures. What do you hope the faithful will take away from these discussions?
So we actually have two different programs running right now. One is the quarantine lectures, which are like our regular programming. We put on lectures on college campuses around the country. Obviously, we can't do that in person now. All of our students are scattered around the country, but we're bringing live lectures to them every, well, right now, Tuesday, Thursdays, we're ramping up so that we're doing it more frequently. This week, every night of the week, we have some live programming. And that is just a way to engage the mind on higher things. Think about God, not necessarily things that are focused on the threats we face from the pandemic. But the other thing we're doing is putting on a Holy Week retreat, which starts on Thursday. So we'll have two retreat conferences and prayers that people can pray from home to follow the retreat from your own home.
I know in the midst of this pandemic, a lot of Catholics are asking some important questions, such as why does God allow evil in our lives? How can you help modern people in the middle of this pandemic find answers that are rooted in the timeless teachings of the Church?
Well, you know, actually, we're going to have a conference on that on Wednesday at 8 p.m. So the title of the talk is the coronavirus a punishment from God? That's the question that, it's a very difficult theological question to take up, but it's actually the question that everybody is emailing us to ask. So we thought that it was very important, even though it's difficult, to say something about it. I mean, the bottom line is sin and death, death and illness are punishments from sin. We learn that from the book of Genesis, and we learn that also from the dogmatic teaching of the Church. So in a broad sense, we can say that our vulnerability to sin, our vulnerability to death and to sickness is, in fact, a result of our sin. And it's a kind of punishment that God permits us to receive. And why does he allow us to do that, to receive that punishment? It's because he wants us to see that there is something above, something greater. And in fact, that's the eternal life that he promises, that Christ brings to us, who assumed our punishment in order to turn it into the life of the resurrection.
Well, Father, thank you so much for joining us and for your insight. Father Dominic Legge, thanks again.
Thank you.